Hi, everyone. Welcome to Happy to See Me, the podcast that puts the spotlight on the overlooked and underestimated. I'm Erika Casupanan, and today I am speaking with actress Alexa Steele. But first, I love to start each episode with something I was happy to see this week. And you will need to be patient with me because I need to be a BTS superfan, aka an ARMY, for a minute. Because what I was happy to see this week was J-Hope from BTS completed his military service. So for those who don't know, young, able-bodied men in South Korea are required to enlist in the military and do 18 months of military service. Since 2022, the members of BTS have been enlisting in the military. There was actually a few months when all 7 of the members were in the military. Now that J-Hope has completed his military service, that means 2 of the 7 members are now done with the military. They are back. They are making more music. I am so happy because, let's be real, I feel like a lot of people who listen to this podcast know how much I love BTS, but I feel like my love for them has been quite calm over the last few months. As more of the members start to complete their military service, slowly but surely we're going to get new music from all 7 members, and this Erika that was quite calm is going to be very excited. So I was happy to see that J-Hope from BTS completed his military service. And speaking of being a big fan of something, myself, like I think many millennials who grew up in North America, I was a big fan of Degrassi, The Next Generation. So I am so thrilled about this week's guest. I am speaking with Alexa Steele. She is a Filipino-Canadian actress, and she is best known for playing 2 characters on Degrassi, The Next Generation. So Alexa and I talk about her 2 auditions for Degrassi, what it was like working with her older sister, and what it was like to be part of a show that was so iconic in so many people's childhoods. Plus, Alexa talks about being underestimated in the entertainment industry and the realities of being an actor. And of course, since we are both Filipino, we do talk about some of our favorite Filipino traditions. So if you know someone who is a Degrassi fan or they want to know about the real lives of actors, make sure you share this episode with them. Here is my interview with Alexa Steele. I hope you enjoy it. I love having a fellow Filipino Canadian.
A Filipino. I like that.
Filipino. I like that. Is that a new term we have to
That's
coin?
a new term. Hey.
I would love that. But you're half Filipino.
I am half Filipino, yeah. My mom's Filipino and my dad is white. I think Irish, because Steele, I think, is an Irish last name.
That's so funny. I feel like so many people I know who are half Asian and then the other half is some type of white. They're just like, yeah, the other side's white.
Yeah, the other side's white. I mean, who knows?
Not that there's anything wrong with white people.
No, of course not. But it's just hard to kind of track it. My dad doesn't know.
Yeah, it's not your fault.
I wasn't given the knowledge.
Did you grow up with Filipino culture?
Oh, yes. Like pretty much exclusively because my dad, again, wasn't really close with any of his family. So it was really only my mom's side that I was close with. And she had like 15 brothers and sisters. So it's like, that's the big family. That's all I've ever known.
What do you think was the biggest Filipino tradition you did in your family?
Oh my gosh, for sure at New Year's where they throw all the coins.
Wait, I never did that.
You never did that?
No.
Oh, we did that. Yeah, every New Year's they would throw like toonies and quarters on the ground and we'd all scramble like little animals to like collect. Yeah, I think I got like $50 one time.
Oh my gosh.
Awesome. Yeah.
I think my family has been holding out on me.
Wait, what is a Filipino tradition you do? Because maybe we don't do it.
I thought you were going to talk about the circles at New Year's.
Circles, what's that?
On New Year's, all the things we'd eat had to be in circular shape. So we'd be eating like pizza and stuff. And then if our clothes could have circles, so we'd be wearing like polka dots. Because the circles are supposed to be good luck for the new year.
We didn't do that.
Well, instead, you're celebrating circles by just throwing money.
Yeah,
so.
Maybe that's it. They're like, circles for everybody.
Yeah.
Because they never threw bills. It was only coins exclusively.
Okay, so that's probably it.
Yeah, okay, there we go. The circle tradition lives on.
Yeah. And then the coin thing. I mean, my dad did have a thing with coins. I don't know if that's from being Filipino or from him just being really superstitious. But whenever we would move into a new place, before you move any furniture in, you have to surround the bedroom perimeter with coins. So it'll mean you'll never go broke when you live there.
And it can be any coins. It can be like pennies and nickels. It doesn't matter what the value is. Oh,
but you're never supposed to spend those coins. So I just have like random baggies of coins.
You're like, from bedroom number 1, from living room.
Still haven't gone broke.
There you go. So he's on to something. Maybe we should all just start putting coins around our rooms.
Yeah. Maybe that's why your family was throwing the coins as well.
Maybe they were like, we can't be bothered to put this around the room. Just sprinkle it everywhere.
And they were like, the kids weren't supposed to pick them up, but at least we don't have to.
Yeah. So they're like, we're not going broke. Just you kids.
Okay. Speaking of our childhoods, you were part of one of the most iconic parts of so many of our childhoods. I feel like every millennial who lives in not just Canada, but North America was a fan of Degrassi. Is it still surreal to you how iconic Degrassi was? Do people still talk to you about how you're a part of their childhood?
Kind of. I mean, I feel like it was kind of weird for me because I was very young when I started it. So it didn't really click with me until later how big it was. And when I visited the US, because it was really big there. And I feel like when people recognize me in the US, it's different than in Canada. I do feel that sense of like, wow, oh my gosh, you were on Degrassi. Like I watch that all the time. And it is really crazy. It's kind of hard to wrap my head around it for sure.
You had such an interesting journey on Degrassi because you played 2 different characters. So you were first playing, I was
Angela first.
And then Tori.
And then Tori. And then they put a sign in, because they held auditions in the front room of the production office. And so they put a sign up that was like, if you've been a character on Degrassi, you can't come back as another character anymore. And I was like, ooh. Sorry, everybody. That's on me. My bad.
Oh, they added that rule after
They added that rule after
Why?
me. Well, I guess they were like, we did it once. We're not going to do it again.
Yeah. I was researching you before, and I still see all these Reddit threads of people being like, why did Alexa come back as a different character? Why do you think this happened? Why do you think Angela couldn't get more of a storyline? So is it fun for you that this is part of your journey on Degrassi?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it is so strange to think about, especially now that I have worked in the industry longer. I do kind of realize how strange it was that I was brought back as a different character, but it is crazy, like all the different fan theories, but it's very simple why I did it. I essentially just auditioned for the character again, and I worked really hard on it, and I booked it, and they did consider bringing me back, but there was a lot of conflicts with the people who played my family, my stepbrother, Jake Epstein, Pat, my father. They also had other projects they were working on, and it would be very difficult to coordinate bringing them back. Doesn't make sense to bring just me back. So they decided, you know what, let's just keep her as the character she auditioned for. So that's it.
Were there any fan theories that you heard of or you saw that you thought were especially funny?
Off the top of my head, I can't really think. I mean, nothing to do with me. It was more like to do maybe with like fellow actors of like who they thought was dating or something like that. And it was just like crazy to see that like maybe we interacted with each other, gave each other a hug in front of, fans or something. And then they were like, maybe they're dating or something like that. And it was funny to see that like, oh, no, absolutely not.
Yeah, I guess with fans, they can just find any little bit of footage and then come up with this whole story in their head about what's actually happening. And that was before social media was really big,
that was
too.
before, yeah. And then there would be the opposite where it would be, 2 characters dating. And maybe one of the characters wasn't as likable or was a bully. And then they'd be like, why are you dating this person? And it's like, no, they're not really the character.
Yeah.
It's different.
That's true. I think that especially since so many people were kids and teenagers watching you don't really understand the difference between the person who is real and the person who is the character.
Actually, the rise of social media, I think, has helped with that, because then you can follow the actor and you start to see them as their own person. You see their likes and interests and the way that they speak versus the character, and it's easier to separate them.
When I was watching Degrassi, I didn't realize that your sister was also on the show. I just saw you as, I remember your sister Cassie played Manny, and I remember as a Filipino kid growing up in Canada, I was just like, oh my God, there's a Filipino girl on the show. This is like crazy. Yeah. And I would see your character, but I just didn't know that you were sisters in real life.
Yeah.
I'm sure that there's so many tropes that people have in mind when it comes to sisters who work together. So what was it actually like working with your sister on the show?
Honestly, we actually were not on set really ever together at the same time because our storylines just never really crossed. I was only ever really shown with my father or with my stepbrother, and she was only ever really at the school, and I was too young to be at the school, so we never crossed paths. I don't think there was a scene that we were together. Oh, except maybe when Pat got married, my dad got married, something like that. But that was really it. So we just never really intersected. But if anything, it was beneficial because she was very helpful for me. Especially, it was a big reason that I was able to book again as Tori's. She helped me with my audition, my second audition, or my callback audition. And she was the one who was like, this is what they're looking for. You know, these are the kind of beats that they really like to see. This is, you know, etc. And so she was a big help, if anything.
Oh, that's amazing. So it wasn't nepotism, people.
It wasn't nepotism. I bombed my first audition. They were not going to call me back.
Oh my God.
I like begged my agent. I'm like, I'm sorry, I messed up. Please ask them to see me one more time. I swear I could do it. Yeah. So it was actually, I almost didn't get the role.
Yeah. Were you both always performers?
I think my dad signed her up for like an acting camp, just as like something fun to do. She really loved it and she continued with it. And then my dad thought, maybe you'll enjoy it. And I cried so hard at my first audition. I was like bawling as they were like leading me into the audition. And I was 6. So I'm like, I don't want to do it. And then in the audition, they were just asking me to like pretend to be a tree and like all this stuff. And then I came out and I was like, that was great. And then from then on, I was very interested in continuing acting.
That's an amazing way to get exposed to acting. Just be on the biggest show.
Yeah, exactly. I had no idea at the time when they were like asking to get on as Angela when I first got on. That may have been, I don't know if it was nepotism, but I went with my dad and my sister when he dropped her off for filming, and Linda Schuyler, the producer, was there. Originally, I believe Angela was supposed to be played by a niece or relative of hers, but she was stuck, couldn't fly over in time for filming. So they were rushing to look for somebody, you know, like somebody to play the role of this little girl. And I come in and then I was like, oh, you're Cassie's sister. How old are you? Like, do you want to be an actress? And I was like, no. And my dad was like, yes, she does. She's lying. No, don't listen to her. She does. She loves acting. That's how I got the role of Angela.
Wow. Okay, but that's definitely right place, right time. The things had to line up and be meant to be for it to happen.
Absolutely, yes. The stars definitely aligned for me and also my dad.
Yes. What I think is so fun and kind of funny about Degrassi is when I was a kid, I was just like, this is the best show. It felt like it was on every day. I felt like it was impossible to watch every episode because there were just so many. And I just thought everyone was so cool. And then I got older and then I moved to Toronto and I'm like, oh, it's just normal to see the Degrassi cast walking around. I think everybody has their story of how they've met somebody who was on Degrassi.
Sure.
Is that like your experience as well? I mean, I know that you were on the show, but have you had any funny run-ins with fans as a result?
Oh, with fans, for sure. I mean, I was just at the Blink-182 concert. The girl was scanning my ticket, was like, were you on Degrassi? And I was like, yeah, I was. And I chatted with her for maybe 2 or 3 minutes before I went down to my seat. But it happens occasionally, more when I was younger. But I even see like the other, I know exactly what you mean. Like, I feel like I run into the other cast all the time in Toronto. I'm like, hey, Jake?
Yeah, I know. It's so funny. I'm like, okay, I'll go to Trinity Bellwoods. And if anyone's listening and they're not from Toronto, Trinity Bellwoods is a big park in the middle of Toronto. I remember the first time I went there after I moved to Toronto, I'm like, oh, there's so-and-so from Degrassi. Or if I would go to concerts, I'm like, there's so-and-so.
Oh my gosh, yeah, we're everywhere. And I feel like there's been so many seasons now, so many people have been on it that it's like easier and easier. We're littered, sprinkled all around.
Is it weird that so many people recognize you from this specific moment in time when you were a kid?
I used to think it was weird, but at the same time, it was also like, again, because my sister was on the show before me and I was on there when I was younger, I felt I was more desensitized to it than maybe some of my other castmates. So it was never that weird. It was only embarrassing like one time in my life when I was super, super sick. I had this crazy sinus infection. I was leaking from my nose and I was trying to buy medicine from the store and this girl recognized me and I was like, yes, it's me.
No.
I was super shy and embarrassed. I just was like, please don't ask. Like, I look so bad. But I definitely don't think it's been, bad or in any sense like that.
And I think it's also cute because you were very clearly a kid when you were on the show. So I would hope most people wouldn't expect you to be the same person.
Yeah, exactly. I feel like most people now are just like, hey, you were on Degrassi. And I'm like, yeah, I was. And they're like, that's cool. And then we all go our separate ways.
Yeah. And I can totally relate having the one fan run-in when you're just in such bad shape. I still have people who come up to me because they remember me from Survivor. I guess it was only a few years ago. And I have purple hair, so I think I'm easy to spot anyways out in the wild. But I remember it was one day, it was post-COVID when all of the flights and stuff were always getting canceled. I was at the airport and I had this flight that got canceled so many times. And I was like, oh my God, I'm going to have to like probably sleep at some airport. I was so tired and annoyed and I had a mask on because we still had to be wearing masks at the time. I was just sweaty and stinky and just like I couldn't be worse. And then someone came up to me. She was like, you look really familiar. I think I know you from somewhere. And I was just like, this is the only time I've ever done this. But I'm like, no, like, I don't know what you're talking about. And I just like turn and walk the other way. That's the only time I was just like, no, I don't have the patience for this.
Pull your mask up
Pull my mask up, put on my hood and just run away.
Oh, I wish I wore a mask. I was like a little bit before COVID when I was sick. So it's like, but lucky.
There's sometimes where I put on glasses because I think no one can see me if I wear glasses, but I'm like, that's not true.
Like you're Superman, like you're Clark Kent.
Like Clark Kent, yeah. Like, no. Like, I obviously still look like myself. On this podcast, we love to put the spotlight on people who have been overlooked or underestimated. Have you ever felt underestimated in the entertainment industry?
Of course. I mean, being a woman, being a young actor, there's been so many instances. I mean, being a young actor is kind of strange because you're younger than most of the people on production. You're getting some pretty big checks, but they are older than you. And I mean, I'm sure you understand with like kind of the Filipino culture. I do respect my elders, but it was weird when they would sort of talk down, and then it's like, but I am the actor on this show, so I don't know. How am I supposed to respond to this? There was always that kind of dynamic on a lot of projects that I worked on when I was younger, and then just being a woman on set and kind of seeing how your male counterparts are treated in comparison to you. If my first ever kind of instance with this, and it's very memorable because it was the first, was there was an actor who was on set and he was, older than me, and he came on set, didn't know a single line, didn't know any of his lines. We had to be there for like 40 minutes until he got everything right. And, maybe a few months later, I was messing up a paragraph. I was messing up this word, replacing it with something else. And I got in so much trouble for it. And I was like, how is that fair that somebody can come in, not know a single word, but if I'm, mixing up a word, the worst thing ever, how can you come to set and not know your lines and all? So that really sparked a rage in me. And it's always kind of like that where, the men can kind of do no wrong sometimes. And then if I do the same thing, it's like, you're devil spawn or something like that. Yeah, or like you're so unprofessional. I feel like I'm made to feel horrible about a mistake, whereas they're kind of like, oh, it's okay, little golden child.
Yeah.
You get to try again.
That's so frustrating.
It is.
I feel like many women experience some version of that, no matter what industry they're in. I feel like in yours, it's just so clear if it's something like knowing the lines, how someone could be treated differently than somebody else.
Absolutely. I mean, I hear many stories from coworkers, regardless if they're in the industry or not, whether it's somebody got a promotion over them, speaking over them in a meeting. So it's all the same everywhere.
Yeah. Well, you've been in the entertainment industry for a while. So do you find that it's gotten better or you've just gotten better at being able to manage it?
I think it's a bit of both. When I was younger, of course, I'm inexperienced. It's the first time I've come up against these sort of situations versus now. I've had a lot of experience, not just in the industry, but life experience. I definitely feel like I can handle it better. And I do feel like the industry has improved a lot. There's just a lot more awareness. I do appreciate that. I can tell, I can really tell when I'm on set now.
even the awareness is probably so validating. Of course, things still
Absolutely.
probably need to change and get better, but the awareness is good validation.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, auditions that I used to get in the past versus what I get now, I mean, because I'm mixed race, I just went out for any kind of woman of color, even though I'm racially ambiguous. I would say I'm even more fairly white passing than than other, women that I work with who are of color. I remember I got 2 auditions from my management, and it was very obviously meant for a Black woman. There was the N-word littered throughout
Wow.
my yeah, and I was just like, hey, I'm not going to be doing this. This is not for me. And they were like, yeah, sure, okay. And then they sent me another one, exactly the same type of thing, obviously meant for a Black woman, N-word littered throughout the whole script. And I was like, please don't send me these. I'm not going to do them. They're not choosing me. It's not a role for me. And they're like, but there's this one picture of you that you took that your hair's really curly and maybe you could be mixed. And I was like, no.
Wow.
I know. I'm like, it doesn't matter in the picture. Look at me right now.
Wow.
This role isn't for, yeah. So, but now I feel it is very, if they're wanting somebody Filipino, I go out for it. If they're wanting somebody who's of Korean descent or Chinese descent, they are purposely auditioning for that ethnicity now. And I think it's come so far, and I really appreciate that.
Yeah, that must be so validating for you too. I could imagine that was probably so confusing growing up.
So confusing. Yeah. I mean, they were, I went out for any, Spanish, Italian, Chinese, any racially, not white person I was going out for.
Wow.
So.
Even when I reflect back to Degrassi, I'm thinking, why did I not connect that you and Cassie are sisters? And I'm like, oh, because the character of Manny was obviously Filipino, but then Angela was not Filipino, right?
No, she was not Filipino. I mean, I am not sure if they've ever specified her ethnicity, but yeah, it was very she was not Filipino.
So then now auditioning, it's only things that you feel more comfortable
Absolutely.
Racially in terms of the characters.
Racially, and there is so much more respect and so much more, I mean, there's this obvious they're more open to seeing people who they would not have seen before, transgender people, and they are very, I'll get auditions, but they're like, this is open to anybody, racially ambiguous, no matter your sexuality. And if you have a disability, please send in your tape for this. And I think that's just you would have never seen something like that back when I started acting, for sure.
Amazing to see that there's been good progress.
Such a great change. Really nice to see, honestly.
Yes. Well, you started when you were young. And of course, we've been talking about Degrassi. When I was researching you, a lot of the bios that I saw for you said things like best known from Degrassi. And I feel like in pop culture, we always hear about people who were child stars, but then they want to get away from just being associated with the project that they did when they were a kid. As you get older, do you want to shift your reputation away from Degrassi and be associated with something else, or do you embrace it?
I feel like at one point when I was in my teens, I was a little rebellious against it. And I was like, I don't want to just be known for my teen years. I want to be known for more. But honestly, as I gotten older, and it was actually Molly Ringwald had an interview about this, and I really liked what she said. I really loved her from The Breakfast Club and Pretty in Pink and, of course, all her iconic movies. And she was talking about how people only recognize her for that. And she was like, how can I be mad at people? Those were really influential movies. If they don't recognize me for something else, then it's just because I haven't done something as influential and as moving as those movies. And I kind of feel the same about Degrassi. And if I do something that's more moving than Degrassi, then great. But I am actually really happy to be on Degrassi. I've not only learned a lot about the industry, but also made such amazing friends. And the fans are so supportive. Anything that I've put out or any avenue I want to explore creatively, they're always so supportive and are always coming out to see my shows, everything like that. And I just really appreciate it. So definitely not upset about it at all.
Yeah, it's definitely cult following. Degrassi is so special because it really appealed to people during those developmental puberty years.
Yes.
And I think what you consume at that time is so special to you. So
Yeah.
the work that you did on that show, it was just really at a special time in somebody's life, you know?
Oh my gosh, thank you. And I do, I get that impression from fans that I meet who are, they've gotten like gifts, little gifts. And my gosh, you went out and you got this for like the thought put into that. And it's really special. And even I actually watched Degrassi before I got on Degrassi, and I was a huge fan. So I'm like, I definitely understand how it can just influence your life, and how, it was one of the only shows kind of dealing with kind of deeper issues. And so I'm proud to be a part of that for sure.
Oh, yeah. I remember the first episode of Degrassi, The Next Generation. I think it was with Emma. Yeah, Emma and the online predator.
Man,
I was like, whoa.
That was intense. Yeah, and so important for kids to know safety about being online. It's so relevant today.
Yeah, I feel like they need to keep making stuff like that for kids' sake.
Redo that episode because we need it again.
Because I remember seeing all the commercials. I'm like, this is going to be a cool show. And I watched it and I was like, I'm scared. But that was the coolest thing to watch.
Yeah. And that, I think, really separated it from other teen sort of shows.
Do you feel the pressure on yourself to do something that's as impactful as Degrassi?
Yeah, sometimes. I definitely really want to. And I definitely, of course, I want to be in something as seeing Nina Dobrev going on to do, Vampire Diaries, seeing Drake go on to do, his music career, completely branching out from the acting career, and just watching other actors who I look up to who are on the same show being able to go on and do these incredible projects is really inspiring to me. And I definitely want to follow in the same route.
Like, do you feel that sense of comparison sometimes?
Maybe not, because I guess they actually weren't a part of a different, I was on at the same time as them. I'm like,
your first character.
Sometimes a little bit. Sometimes when people ask like, oh, what are you doing now? I'm like, I'm trying.
Oh my God, I totally hear you.
I know. I'm like, it's a lot harder to book an audition or book a role. There is so much competition, so many other people. And I'm like, I am trying, I promise. It's going to happen.
Yeah, I once had somebody tell me that for actors specifically, the work is auditioning. And then the reward is being able to work. So you're 100%. Always working.
You're always working. You're always memorizing lines, sending in these scenes. The reward is more work.
Yes.
But you love the work, so it's okay.
Yes. But I totally understand that pressure. Once you've done a thing, it's like when I was on Survivor, then everyone's like, okay, what's next? I'm like, what's next? Yeah, what are you doing? Oh my God, what do I do? I have to figure this out. I talk to so many people who have won reality shows, and then afterwards they're like, okay, so like, what do I do next? Because this thing happened. And I'm like, I understand. And I had somebody
100%
on the podcast last year. He's a science YouTuber, and he was also on Big Brother Canada. And he was explaining that when you have that level of success and fame, it's like a drug and you're high. And then you keep searching for things to replicate that high. He called it the hedonic treadmill. And he's like, once you get off the treadmill and you are able to find satisfaction in your life, like you can still keep going for things, but you don't need that high and that success to feel like you have value.
Absolutely. It does feel a bit like a hamster wheel, like a treadmill. There's no rest. It's what are you doing next? What's happening next? And if you can just get off and like, hey, you're okay. You're going to be fine. Just relax. Like there is always opportunity. You don't have to rush.
Exactly. Yeah. And all the things you've achieved so far have been awesome.
Oh, thank you.
Do you think that there's a common misconception about actors?
Oh, 100%. We were just talking about that it is easy to get another role or, anything like that. Why don't you just go on another show? And it is hard. It is tough to get an audition. You're up against also a lot of really other talented actors who are working just as hard to get the role as you are. And hey, sometimes it works out, sometimes it doesn't. You just got to keep trying. But just know we're all behind the scenes auditioning.
And there's also so many things that are out of your control that would eliminate you from getting a role that have nothing to do with you.
Have absolutely nothing to do with you. I mean, if you're auditioning, this is the biggest example, like auditioning for a family role. If they have already casted the parents, if there's another girl who looks more like the parents than you, you're out. That's it. If she's got straight hair like the mom, she's in, you're out.
Yeah. Or even like, I mean, I'm 5 feet tall, which is very small. And I've learned that it's also like, if they've already cast somebody and you're much taller than them or you're much shorter than them, like, just not going to work.
Yeah, just not happening. Yeah, I'm like, same, like 5'2", and I'm like, oh, thank you. Yay. You and me.
Yeah.
Yeah, the height, it could be anything. I mean, the director might like you, but if like producers don't like you, that's it. Or, casting director might like you, but the director doesn't like you. There's a lot of politics behind the scenes. Sometimes it happens for you. Sometimes it swings in your favor, and sometimes it doesn't.
Did you watch Bridgerton?
I watched the first season and then a little bit of the other 2 seasons.
So when the main character from the first season, Regé Jean Page, he didn't come back for future seasons because he said he was going to do other acting things. Mm-hmm. I noticed over the summer there were so many memes of people being like, waiting for Regé Jean Page to start that acting career he said he was going to have instead of Bridgerton. As an actor, how does that sit with you?
I mean, I was so torn because I do understand where he was coming from, where he's, he felt like his arc was complete and he knew he was only going to be coming back as kind of like a background character, essentially, in somebody else's main storyline. Mm-hmm. And he wanted to do more and wanted to have more fulfilling roles. And I totally get that. But at the same time, I was like, Bridgerton is huge. Mm-hmm. Like, I think it was kind of crazy to just completely step out and not be a part of something that has given you a platform in a way. So I'm a little torn. I do understand what he wants, but at the same time, as a Bridgerton fan, I was like, oh, you're too good for Bridgerton now. Too good for us, huh?
Yeah, it's like selfishly, I want to keep watching you. I want to make sure that your romance is still good, okay?
Yeah, I'm like, come on, man, come back for 1 episode.
Yeah.
You can still do other things.
Exactly. Is there a dream role that you'd want to play?
Oh, anything sci-fi fantasy. I would love to be a part of, like Marvel, like The Witcher, House of Dragon. I know they only hire British people, but I would still love to be on some maybe American version of that. I don't know. Mm-hmm. But anything like that, I would love to do like some sort of fight sequence.
Oh my God.
Not that I'm not athletic at all, but I would still like to try.
I was going to say, I can totally see you fighting.
Thank you.
And whatever, it's just like you rehearse. It's just part of acting.
Yeah, just rehearse. And I'm sure I could figure it out. I can throw a kick. I did taekwondo.
I feel like you need to look up a character in the Marvel universe and then pull a Simu and then tweet that you want to play that character.
Okay, you're right. I'll just Google curly, dark-haired Marvel character. Yeah. Whoever comes up, I'm like, at Marvel. Can I do this?
Yes. And then just let it happen.
Just hope that hope it works out.
You also do more than just acting. You have launched your own podcast. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Can you tell everybody about Steele My Story?
Yes. So Steele My Story, it's based off my name. It is the podcast where we bring on a guest to tell one true story and one stolen story. And my co-host and I and the audience have to guess which is true and which is stolen. And Erika, thank you so much for being on my show. If you'd like to watch our episode, it's coming out soon this October.
So thank you. I don't know the exact date this is going to come out yet, but it could be out.
I don't know the exact date of yours either.
The episode could be out, but I think to be safe, you should subscribe to Steele My Story just to make sure you don't miss it if it's not out.
Don't miss it. Click that bell. Follow us on social media, Instagram, TikTok, wherever you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, and we're on YouTube. If you wanted to watch the show, you can also watch it there.
Love it. So, Alexa, what is next for you?
Oh my gosh, the big question. Wow, I mean, at the same time, I'm trying to, like you said, kind of, get off the treadmill and not get too caught up in what I need to do. But at the same time, like we were talking about with auditioning and finding more roles, I actually wanted to create some more roles and not just be an actor, but also get into writing and directing and creating roles that I could do for myself or for other actors, because we all need more opportunity.
Yes, 100%. Different stories from different people, different points of view.
Let's get some more Filipinos in this business. Huh?
Yes, let's start throwing those toonies.
Yes. Oh my gosh, I'll just write a movie about that, about throwing toonies and New Year's in the Philippines.
Oh my gosh, that's
There's an idea right there.
two people on their hands and knees going for the same toonie.
Oh, it's a love story. Let's brainstorm.
Yeah, they were going for $2 and instead found a lifetime of love.
That's a Hallmark movie right there.
Yes. I could totally see you in a Hallmark movie, by the way.
Thank you. Oh my gosh, I'd love to be in a Hallmark movie. I feel like I could kill a Christmas movie.
You would do so well in a Christmas movie. Okay, Hallmark, if you're listening.
At Hallmark, please hire me. That's how I audition now, is I just shout them out over podcasts.
Yeah. Alexa, thank you so much for chatting today. Where can people follow along and see what you're up to?
People can follow along on my Instagram at Alexa Steele. I also have TikTok, YouTube, Alexa Rose Steele, and you can also follow the Steele My Story podcast at Steele My Story podcast on Instagram, TikTok. If you search it on YouTube, it'll pop up on my YouTube channel as well.
Yay. Okay. And everybody, make sure you subscribe and tune in to Steele My Story because you'll hear me and so many other people.
Yay. Thank you so much for having me on.
Thank you so much, Alexa. Do you speak Tagalog?
I don't. My mother never taught me.
Okay. If I say salamat, oh my gosh, now the Tagalog speaking people are going to be like, your pronunciation is so bad. But salamat.
I do know what you mean. Salamat.
Salamat for being on the show.
I know.
As you can tell, I had so much fun chatting with Alexa. So if you enjoyed our conversation, make sure you check out the episode with me on her podcast, Steele My Story. I will make sure to link it in the show notes because I share some pretty fun stories which may or may not have happened to me. So I'd love to end each episode by answering a listener question. And I feel like this episode is really appropriate given that Alexa has just started her own podcast. So this week's question is, what is your biggest challenge when it comes to podcasting? And honestly, it took me half a second to know the answer to this question. Consistency. I love podcasting, but it is a lot of work, especially when you have a weekly show and you have a new guest every episode. It's a lot of work to not only book guests, do the interview prep, record the interviews and edit them and make sure they're always being published, but even the creative thinking that comes with thinking about who you want on the show and the angles of the interview. It's a lot of brain power. I think that it's really easy for people to start podcasts and then to see how much work it is and then decide that they're going to give them up or they're going to move on to the next thing. And by the way, if you have started a podcast and you decided it's not your thing, no disrespect at all. Everybody has their own thing. But in terms of remaining consistent, here are my 2 pieces of advice. And this can apply to podcasting or really apply to anything where you're having challenges with consistency. The first is think about what it is you love about something. So when I think about podcasting, there are 2 things that I love so much. The first is I love connecting with the guests. I put so much heart into the show, and I've actually been able to develop friendships with guests. I've been able to work with some of them. We've been able to collaborate in new ways. And of course, I always learn something from the guests I have. So being able to use this platform to connect with so many inspirational people is the coolest thing ever. Plus, I also love connecting with all of the listeners. It is so amazing when an episode is published and getting a DM from someone saying, oh my gosh, this thing that this person said in the episode today, I can totally relate to it. It is just the coolest thing ever to be able to share these stories that make people feel a little bit seen or happy to be seen, if you could say. So remember, when you are struggling with consistency, to remind yourself what you love about something. And the second tip I have when it comes to consistency is to aim for improvement, not perfection. I was somebody who definitely was a perfectionist, and often having these perfectionist tendencies would make me stop doing something or prevent me from starting something. And I've learned that with podcasting, especially with the show when you're releasing regular episodes, you should just aim to be a little bit better every time versus make every episode perfect. Because in which case you give yourself more freedom to not only release something, even though you know there's something you could have done better, but you also give yourself more freedom to improve and experiment. So don't aim for perfect episodes. Just aim to make your episode this week a little bit better than the episode last week. So thank you so much to the listener for asking that question. And of course, thank you for listening to this episode. If you haven't already, I would love if you could subscribe, rate, and review the podcast wherever you get your podcasts. We are on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube at @HappyToSeeMePod. Thank you so much for being here, and I will be happy to see you next Monday.